There's a reason you're here. Maybe it was a quiet nudge. Maybe it was a cry from within. Or maybe, just maybe, something deep in your spirit knows that her absence is not the end, that her silence is not the final word. And you're right to feel that. Because I've seen it time and again, before she returns, before her eyes soften again when they see your name, before her steps lead her back to your presence. Something always happens. Not sometimes, always. And if you don't know how to recognize it, you might miss the moment that heaven designed for your reunion. Before she ever reaches out again, a season of silence always falls. It's a silence you'll want to fill. You'll want to text, to call, to send a memory just to feel close again. But that silence isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the womb of transformation. It's where her mind begins to reflect, where her heart softens, and where her spirit starts to stir. Most men run from that silence. But wise men, faithful men, men who've tasted heartbreak and still hope, they learn to wait in it. Because that silence isn't her rejection. It's the beginning of her return. But that return can never happen until she is humbled. Not by you, but by life itself. By her own journey. By the weight of what was lost. Pride has to break before love can rebuild. She has to reach a point where her independence starts to feel like isolation, where her freedom starts to echo with emptiness. That's not punishment, that's preparation. The same way you're learning in this waiting season, she's learning in her own. And humility is the soil where reconciliation grows. You can't rush that. You can't preach her back into your arms. Only life can bring her there. And life will. And what about you? In this gap, in this longing, you must let go, not in defeat, but in faith. When you release her from your grip, you allow God to grip her heart. You may think holding tighter will bring her back. But it's not pressure that brings restoration, it's peace. You must surrender the outcome, surrender the timeline, surrender even the idea of reconciliation itself. Only then are you truly ready to receive her if and when she returns. Because love cannot grow where control is planted. Love grows in the light of freedom. And while you wait, there is a hidden blessing. Transformation. You are being reshaped. The pain is carving wisdom into your soul. The loneliness is stretching your capacity for love and your personal growth. The inner change, not the outward effort, is what calls to her deepest places. She may never tell you. She may never even realize it consciously. But a man who rises from heartbreak stronger, wiser, more whole, that man begins to carry a magnetism that can't be ignored. She will feel it before she even sees it. That's what often pulls her back. Not your old words, your new spirit. But even if you walk the path with patience and grace, there is one truth you must never forget. The timing is not yours. It never was. It belongs to something greater. You might want her back next week, next month. But heaven works in seasons, not seconds. The reunion, if it's destined, will not come early. But it will not be late either. It will come at the appointed time. The moment when both hearts are ready, not just wanting, but ready to love again, deeply, truthfully, humbly. So don't lose heart. Don't chase shadows or cling to what was. Be still, be faithful, grow, heal, learn. The sign will come. You'll feel it in your spirit before she ever reaches out. You'll sense the shift. And if your heart is prepared, you will be ready, not just to receive her, but to build something better than before. Because this will always happen before she comes back to you. There is a strange, sacred quiet that always falls before she comes back. It's the kind of silence that doesn't make sense to the mind, but it speaks volumes to the soul. When someone we love walks away, our instinct is to fill the silence. Text her, call her, check her last scene, relive the memories, stalk the photos, hope for a sign. But the truth is, just before her heart begins to turn back toward you, the loudest thing you'll experience is stillness. No messages, no signs, no whispers, just silence. And it will feel like emptiness, like nothing is moving, nothing is happening, like the story is over. But in reality, that's where everything is beginning. The moment before return is always quiet, because transformation doesn't make noise. It happens in the unseen, in the spiritual, in the soul. While you're checking your phone for a message, that doesn't come. Something in her is beginning to soften. While you're wondering if she forgot everything you shared, her heart is beginning to remember. You can't hear it, but something is changing. There's a moment in every story where the tension tightens just before the breakthrough, where the pain reaches its peak just before peace arrives. This is that moment. You think nothing's happening, but in fact, this is the moment heaven is working hardest. If you don't recognize the silence for what it is, you'll panic. You'll try to force a conversation. You'll chase. You'll beg. And in doing so, you may interrupt what was already unfolding. That's why this silence is not a punishment. It is protection. It is purpose. It is timing. You're being taught not just how to wait, but how to trust. When a woman walks away, she doesn't immediately regret it. At first, she may feel relief, then distraction, then empowerment. But eventually, in the stillness of her own life, in the nights when no one else is calling, when no one else really sees her heart, she starts to hear again. She starts to remember what was real. And it's often in your silence, not your pursuit, that she begins to reflect. Your silence becomes a mirror for her soul. It gives her space to look inward, to question, to feel. That space is sacred. And if you rush into it with words, with pressure, with fear, you steal away the one thing that was drawing her back: curiosity, reflection, and absence. The absence must be felt. The loss must breathe. That's how love, if real, reawakens. It does not return by force. It returns by revelation. The silence is not just what you're enduring. It's what she's feeling too. But only one of you may recognize what it means. Only one of you may see that this silence is not the end. It is the beginning of a return that starts with stillness. Before she comes back, something must take place inside her that no one else can do for her. Not her friends, not her family, not even you. Her heart must be humbled, not broken in a way that destroys her, but humbled in a way that softens her. You see, pride is one of the strongest walls a person can build, especially after a breakup. She may have walked away trying to prove something, to you, to herself, to the world. She might be trying to show she's strong, independent, better, off without you. And for a while, it may even seem like she's succeeding. The photos look confident, the captions sound free, and every signal she gives off says she doesn't miss you at all. But here's the truth that most people never say out loud. Pride may look powerful, but it is always temporary. Sooner or later, pride gets tired. It runs out of fuel. It becomes heavy to carry. And that's where the shift begins. That's when her heart begins to feel the weight of what was lost. Not just the relationship, but the connection, the safety, the truth of what you once shared. But that moment never comes right away. It takes time, distance, and a kind of emotional discomfort that pride alone can't fix. And no matter how much you want to reach out, to explain, to reason, to remind her of the love that once lived between you, it won't work until she feels it. Because true return doesn't happen when someone's ego is still in control. It happens when their soul is quiet enough to listen. And most often, that humbling doesn't come through you. It comes through life. Maybe it's through a failed connection with someone new. Maybe it's through loneliness that no one else can fill. Maybe it's through a realization in the middle of the night when she remembers how safe she felt with you, how known she truly was. Humility rarely looks pretty. Sometimes it looks like tears behind closed doors. Sometimes it looks like scrolling through old conversations, wondering why she ever let it go. Sometimes it's just the ache of seeing your name and realizing it still means something. That's what makes this part so sacred, because when a heart is humbled, it's no longer thinking about pride or appearances or even winning. It begins to think about truth. And the truth is, love that was once real doesn't just vanish. It doesn't fade just because time passed or people moved on. That truth begins to stir again in her, not because you chased it, but because life awakened it. And that awakening is often quiet, private, even painful. But it is always necessary. It's the softening of the heart that must happen before any hand can be extended in love again. Until that happens, nothing else matters. Not timing, not messages, not apologies. Because until the heart is humbled, it cannot return fully, and it cannot return rightly. One of the hardest truths for any man to accept after a woman walks away is that her return cannot be forced, predicted, or controlled. And yet, this is the very key that unlocks the path back to what was lost. You must let go to let God work. This isn't about religion. This is about surrender, about understanding that love, real love, cannot be manipulated back into place. You may want to call her, plead with her, prove to her that you're the one. You may feel the urge to explain your side of the story, to convince her that the love is still alive, to fix what's been broken. But every time you try to take control of the outcome, you unknowingly step into a place that only grace is meant to occupy. This isn't a battle to be won by strength, by effort, by logic. It's a process that unfolds in silence, in separation, and in surrender. There's a reason why so many attempts to win her back fall flat, because the heart can sense when it's being manipulated, even with the kindest words. The heart responds not to pressure, but to peace. And that peace doesn't come from you clinging tighter. It comes from you letting go. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving her. It doesn't mean you forget her. It doesn't even mean the door is closed forever. Letting go means you release the need to control how and when it all comes back together. It means you accept that your effort alone cannot resurrect something sacred. Only God, only life, only time, only truth can breathe life into love again. And while it may feel like you're doing nothing, letting go is one of the most courageous things you can do. It says, I trust that if this love is meant to live, it will return. And if it is not, then something greater will come. That level of faith doesn't come easy. It often comes through nights of wrestling, through tears cried in secret, through moments when you want to reach out so badly, but choose silence instead. That is where strength is born. That is where healing begins, because it's in your surrender that space is made, not just for her return, but for your own restoration. When you let go, you allow your spirit to be free to grow, to heal, to rediscover who you are beyond this pain. And it is often that transformation, not your words, not your gestures, that begins to draw her back. She won't come back because you chased her. She'll come back because you changed, because something in you became whole again, and that wholeness creates a presence she can feel from afar. But none of that happens until you loosen your grip, until you stop trying to force the outcome, and trust that what's meant for you will always find its way, when the time is right and the heart is ready. There is a lesson hidden in every mile of distance and every tick of time apart, one that neither of you expected to learn, but both of you desperately needed. Time and separation become the greatest teachers when love is paused, broken, or uncertain. At first, you'll resist this classroom. You'll feel like the days are punishing you, like the silence is cruel, like distance is robbing you of your chance to make things right. But with time, you'll come to see that the distance isn't there to hurt you, it's there to prepare you. Because when emotions run high and pain is still fresh, Clarity is impossible. You think you're ready for reconciliation in the early days, but often it's your fear talking, not your healed self. And the same is true for her. She might look like she's fine. She might sound like she's moved on. But time is doing something sacred in both of your lives. It is allowing the fog to clear. It is allowing your hearts to settle. It is separating impulse from intention. And only when time has done its work can love return as something new, something deeper, something that lasts. In the space between you, you both begin to remember differently. The moments that once triggered anger or disappointment begin to fade, and what was real, the laughter, the connection, the unspoken understanding starts to shine again. But this remembering doesn't happen quickly. It requires silence. It requires patience. It requires a heart that's willing to stop looking backward with blame and start looking inward with responsibility. Time teaches her what being without you really feels like, not just in the public image of her life, but in the quiet corners of her soul. And it teaches you that love, if it is to return, must be invited, not demanded. Separation strips away the ego. It reveals what remains. When the drama settles and the emotions cool, it forces both people to confront themselves, not each other. That's where true transformation happens. In the absence, she learns not just what you meant to her, but what kind of man you are now becoming. And in that same absence, you learn what kind of man you must become. Not for her, but for yourself. Every hour apart, every unanswered message, every moment where you felt forgotten is not wasted. It's being used to purify your intentions, used to shape your identity, used to prepare you for something deeper than what you lost. That's why when love returns after a true separation, it never comes back in the same shape. It comes back wiser, stronger, quieter perhaps, but more certain. And only those who allow time and separation to teach them can truly receive what is meant to return. Because when love comes back without reflection, it simply repeats its past. But when love comes back after learning, it rises. There comes a point in every journey of waiting, longing, and wondering when you must stop watching for her and start working on you. This is not self-help advice. It is spiritual truth. Because what draws her back isn't desperation. It's transformation. You see, when a woman decides to leave, whether in confusion, frustration, or certainty, her mind may close the chapter, but her spirit will always remain alert to your evolution. She may have walked away from the man you were, but she can still be drawn back to the man you are becoming. And this is the moment most men miss. Instead of growing, they grovel. Instead of building, they beg. Instead of becoming stronger, they try to prove that they've changed through words and posts and signals. But change that is truly powerful does not need to announce itself. It radiates. It speaks without speaking. It resonates without trying. That's why the most important work you can do during this time is not outward, it is inward. Don't rebuild a version of yourself you think she wants. Don't become the echo of a memory. Become the man God designed you to be when no one was watching. Because when she does begin to think about you again, and she will, what will she find? Will she find the same patterns, the same fear, the same insecurities dressed in better clothes? Or will she find someone who let pain refine him, who let the loss shape his character, who lets silence become his sanctuary for growth? You won't know the day or hour her heart begins to soften, but it will happen. And when it does, she won't just be curious about your status or your smile. She'll want to know, has he grown? Has he healed? Has he matured? The man who uses this time to rise emotionally, spiritually, mentally, he becomes magnetic. And not just to her, but to life itself. He starts attracting peace, wisdom, purpose. And in that new presence, even if she can't explain it, something in her will stir. Because women are not just drawn to words or gestures. They are drawn to essence. Your essence changes when your heart changes. And your heart changes when you finally decide that growth is not for her, not for a future reunion, not for the sake of appearance, but for your own calling, your own destiny, your own wholeness. So when she comes back, and if the love was real, there will be a moment. What will she find? Let her find a man who didn't waste the silence, a man who became more than she left, not in arrogance, but in humility. A man who didn't chase closure, but chased purpose. Because when she sees that, she won't just see a second chance, she'll see something she didn't know she was missing. And that presence, that inner strength, that quiet power, it speaks louder than any message you could have sent. Before she comes back to you, something must shift in both of your stories. Something deeper than feelings, deeper than memory, deeper than the desire to rekindle the past. That shift is alignment. Not just emotional alignment, but spiritual alignment. Two hearts may still love each other, but love alone is not enough to sustain a return. There must be a coming together of timing, purpose, and maturity. And this alignment doesn't happen by chance. It happens through seasons of separation that refine you both in silence. You may believe she's ready because you're ready, but the truth is, she may still be growing in areas you cannot see. Maybe she's healing from wounds that you didn't cause, wounds that go far beyond the relationship. Maybe she's discovering her identity apart from anyone else, breaking free from patterns, expectations, or roles she was never meant to carry. And you? You might feel healed because the pain has dulled, but alignment asks for more than comfort. It demands clarity. Are you truly the man who can cover her with understanding, stability, and grace in the next season of life? Are you prepared for the weight of love that is rooted not in romance, but in responsibility? Many men believe they are ready for her return simply because they miss her. But missing her does not make you her match. What makes you her match is your willingness to become who you were always meant to be, regardless of whether she returns. That's the paradox. Alignment happens when you are no longer chasing her return, but are walking fully in your purpose. And she, in her own journey, must arrive at the same place, not needing you to fill a void, but choosing you from a place of fullness. When both hearts are aligned, not through pressure or fear or desperation, but through growth, clarity, and truth, then and only then does the path open up again. And when it does, the reunion is not dramatic, not chaotic, not unstable. It's peaceful, it's mutual, it's natural. It just fits. The conversations flow differently. The forgiveness comes easier. The expectations are fewer. The connection is stronger. Because it's not coming from the same place of brokenness. It's coming from a place of completion. And that alignment can never be faked. You can't manipulate it into existence. You can't rush it with words. You can't fabricate it through images or stories. It has to be lived into. It has to be earned in the secret places of discipline, self-control, and faith. So if you're still waiting for her, understand this. She is not just coming back to the man she remembered. You are being called to become the man she never expected. And she is being shaped into the woman you couldn't have imagined until now. That's how you'll know when the time is right. Because neither of you will be returning to the past. You'll be stepping into a future only alignment could prepare. So, now, after the silence has spoken, after pride has crumbled, after control has been surrendered, after time has taught its quiet lessons, after growth has reshaped your spirit, and after divine alignment has quietly prepared the way, this is where the true test begins. Because now, it's no longer about whether she returns. It's about whether you are truly ready to receive her, if she does. You see, this speech was never just about waiting on her. It was always about becoming the man worthy of her return. And more than that, the man worthy of his own peace, purpose, and wholeness, regardless of the outcome. The truth is, The story may or may not lead to her coming back. She may be part of your next chapter, or she may have only existed to shape your current one. But here's what will always happen before she returns. Silence will stretch you. Humility will prepare you. Surrender will steady you. Time will teach you. Transformation will elevate you, and alignment will define you. And if she does come back, it won't be because of anything you forced. It will be because of everything you became. So now the question shifts from, will she come back, to something deeper. Are you the man she'll want to come back to? Even more importantly, are you the man who doesn't need her return to find his worth? Because when you reach that point, when your heart is full, your spirit is calm, and your eyes are no longer searching but seeing, you won't be waiting for her out of emptiness, but standing for love out of fullness. And that's when restoration is possible. That's when it's real. And if it never happens, you still won. Because you became the man God was trying to awaken in you all along. That is the moment you no longer wait in fear, but walk in faith. That is the moment when she will feel it, wherever she is. That is the moment something will shift, not because you reached for her, but because you finally reached for purpose. And that is when love, if meant to return, will always find its way home. Amen.